ByteWize founder Lori Hardtke joins this week to talk news coming from Enables Empower Partner Conference, Kaseya's latest acquisition, and the ChannelPro SMB All-Stars, plus a special guest interview with attorney at law Brad Gross on MSA and SLA best practices. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 242, RTFM. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly episode number 242. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine show for folks out there who specialize in the provision, the implementation, and the maintenance of technology solutions with other businesses, meaning you are an MSP, you are a VAR, you're an IT integrator, you're a system builder, you are an IT consultant, you are a virtual CIO. You might not be all of those things, but you could be all of those things. But if any of that sounds like, yeah, that kind of is what I do, you are listening to the right show, or listening or watching the right show for you. So we are very, very glad that you are here. Joining me each and every week is the man who keeps the ChannelPro schedule running, who writes all the great news, travels the country, leaving his house, sitting in hotels with people walking in. I'm sure we'll hear a story about that in a second. Please welcome the man of the hour, executive editor, Rich Freeman.
Yeah, we could be visited by somebody here at the hotel. I mean, at any minute, actually. Let's just see what happens. But greetings from America's playground.
So Rich is in a hotel. We started off this conversation when we got on here with, I got into this hotel room and it was missing a lot of things. And for a second, I thought, like, well, what was it missing? Like, was there no bed or something? And Rich says, well, it was missing the privacy sign. So you were getting visited by hotel room cleaning fairies with that you can't shoo away with a sign. Was there anything else missing in the room, Rich?
Well, the one that was most obvious was there is an ice bucket behind me, but there were no cups for it until yesterday. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And to be clear, nobody has actually sort of wandered in here while I am in here. It's just that I happen to notice that they come, at the time of day when they come to clean this room is right about now. And I have no way of letting them know I'm recording a podcast. So we may or may not get a visit from the cleaning crew here at Harrah's, Las Vegas.
Oh, that'd be fun. And like I suggested, we should just let them clean behind you while we do the show. And I think that would be absolutely hilarious for our viewing audience. Well, she's popped her face on screen a couple times. I am super excited that we have a guest with us. Why not just go ahead and dive in and introduce her? I'm really excited that she's here. She's the owner and president of ByteWize, Inc. She's also a solo MSP and entrepreneur, a technology director, and author who specializes in highly effective technology strategies for small businesses. She also teaches a class on how to be a successful solo MSP through the ITSP University, which helps other MSPs scale their business without hiring, as it says, an army of employees. Please welcome the one, the only, the fabulous Lori Hardtke. Welcome.
Wow, thanks for that glamorous intro, Matt. Yeah, I'm Lori, and just so everyone knows, I am from Minnesota. So if you hear a few you betchas and things don't sound, just right, that's probably the reason. I grew up in Minnesota. I moved to Arizona, lived there for about 26 years. And that's where I started my business, actually incorporated it in 2003. And then started full-time in 2008. And that's, kind of right about when the whole MSP thing was becoming a thing. And so I jumped on that bandwagon because that made a lot of sense for me to, with my personality, I want to help people when things are going well. Not when things are down and out and, everybody's mad. So I became an MSP with Carl Palachek's help, actually. He was a coach of mine for a few months. And then I actually moved to Maui, Hawaii in 2013, and to this day, only about half my clients still know I live here. So I kind of don't make it a thing. It really doesn't matter, I feel, where you are anymore. we do everything. I was really doing Zoom before Zoom was a thing. And trying to think what other fun facts I might have, but I actually landed one of my biggest clients remotely. And it was a challenge, and it was, I learned so much from it, and they still don't know I live here. And it worked out really well. So still a great client of mine, actually.
That's really funny. Do you still target like the Arizona area for your business, or do you really just kind of like, I can service people from anywhere, so I may as well just
I have majority of them are all in Arizona, and I do have a part-time tech, so it's not just me. But he just works a couple hours a day and does kind of the on-site stuff. I do have clients in a couple other states, but it doesn't really matter, this day and age where you are. And I just picked up my first client here in Hawaii, and it's just because I didn't want to work. I'm always on Arizona time, so I'm up at 4:35 here. And then I just didn't want to work till 5 at night to support Hawaii. But they have limited hours. It's a small, like a bookkeeping office. And the biggest challenge was the whole tax thing here. And I knew it, but the way it's not a sales tax, it's GET, general excise tax. So that's been a challenge, but I'm working through that. And what else can I guess I really focus on profits instead of adding. I've actually have less clients now than I did probably 4 or 5 years ago. But my revenue is maintaining or growing a little bit. And I primarily focus now on helping other MSPs be profitable. So
it's a really interesting backstory, and it's clear that your early years, childhood, time spent in Minnesota scarred you and made you want to go seek much warmer climates.
Yes.
But what drew you to leave and go to Mount? Because you were in Arizona, that's certainly warm. What made you want to go all the way out to an island in the middle of the Pacific?
In the middle of nowhere. Well, a couple of things, but yeah, you're right. In Minnesota, I worked at Mayo Clinic for a lot of years, and there was in Rochester, Minnesota, and there was no easy place to really, you couldn't park any closer than where I was living. 70 below, I had to walk. I came and I had frost around my nose, and every little hair on my face had frost on it. It was quite interesting. So that damaged me actually. So came here in 2011 for a vacation. And then my wife actually had a job interview here 2 years later, and here we are. Right when my business was starting to kind of really take off, and I was gaining more clients in Arizona, and I'm like, well, you only live once. And then it was probably the most challenging and then rewarding event that happened to me because of my uniqueness, and that I was able to grow a business remotely. I had no idea that would happen, and how to do that. And, that's why being part of the channel is, I feel, really, really important. And the community, being involved with other, like I'm members of all kinds of things. I don't really participate a whole lot. I don't have a whole lot of time, but I am watching. And I always say I get little nuggets of information from a variety of people that, you can take it and do something with it. And that's how I've been able to it's brought me to where I am today. Yeah.
Very cool. Rich, the scary thing is that she's talking about Rochester and like 70 below. And Lori, I spent my early childhood in Minneapolis. So like, I know,
very cool.
I know, but I'm actually not much further south than than the Rochester line is. I'm a little bit more south, but I still am in winter wonderland in Northern Illinois. So I know your pain. I don't blame you for escaping to much warmer climates.
So yeah, and I was a river rat, grew up on the Mississippi, but I'll take the ocean any day. We used to call it the muddy Mississippi. So yeah, I'll take the ocean any day.
So go ahead, Rich.
Well, I was just going to say, because you mentioned Carl Palachuk before, Lori, and I first learned about you and how you run your business from him. And I want to say that was 4 years ago at a conference, and he said, I know this MSP who, you know, has customers thousands of miles away. And if I remember right, you can set me straight if not, but at that time, that 2018 timeframe, were you in the UK for a while, somewhere in between Arizona and Hawaii?
No, well, I was spending a lot of time back in Minnesota just because of my aging parents. And I always say, you know, just live with no regrets. So I would be back there at least three times a year for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And so thankful I had the job that I did that allowed me to really, that's why I said, you never knew where I was going to be. Sometimes I was in Arizona, I was in, you know, Minnesota, and then obviously a lot of time here. So, but yeah, if you hear any chickens or anything, there's always some kind of wildlife right outside my office window here, but.
Very cool. So, so you mentioned the class a little earlier. Tell us a little bit about that class that you teach and what that's all about.
It's a 5-week class, and I cover, like, the very first week. It's really about, again, the vendors that we select. I've had quite a run with some of them, good, and then some that have tarnished me. Then let's see what else and the community and affiliates as well. And then we talk about, I have a week on finance, profits, and keeping it simple. I'm all about, you know, keeping things just, when you're small, you want to be as efficient as you can. And then the last week is, you know, trying to run your business like clockwork. So a lot of automation, and I know we're going to probably talk about, you know, things like ConnectBooster and things that help. And I can go into some detail a little later on how that has changed my business. And
Sure.
I feel like those little things really do help you become more profitable. And so you don't have to hire a staff. You know, that was always my goal. I used to be an IT manager, and I think I was managing 8 or so people, and I felt like I was just a glorified babysitter. And I'm like, I don't really want to do this. And then as I was in various accountability groups through Robin's membership, I learned what I didn't want. And it was clearly I still didn't want any employees on a full-time basis, you know, and grow and grow. And that's the other hard thing is you do here. When you're in these groups, you know, everyone's being so successful and they're growing. And it's like, but I don't want that. So it was a struggle for me for a lot of years until I actually had a one-on-one with Robin. And she's like, you're a renegade, just go with it. You're fine. You know, it's whatever you want your business to be like. So I was like, oh, she made it sound so simple. And then that's really what that was pivotal, actually, to hear those words. So I'm trying to tell other MSPs who want to be small, it's okay. You don't have to be big. You don't have, you know, you can still, I'm really about like health, wealth, and happiness. I want that balance, but as we all know, that's really hard to achieve. And that hence why I don't really travel a whole lot. I like to be, I'm a homebody. I love to be out in the garden and cook and all kinds of things. So it's like my business isn't everything to me. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, it obviously is what allows me to do the things I want to do. and when.
Oh, well, no, well said. People shouldn't live for their job. People should use their job to help them live.
There is, that phrase that comes up a lot in the industry that I don't like a lot, having a lifestyle business, because it always sounds so dismissive, like, oh, well, that's merely a lifestyle business, as opposed to the ChannelPro who is trying to, grow a big company, build an empire, whatever. And I salute the people who have successfully built a lifestyle business. It's like, if you have a company that allows you to do what you want to do, like you were just saying, that is difficult to do, and I think it's great when people can. There should be no apologies for running a lifestyle business.
Yeah, I've heard the term family first business, and I kind of like that. That really is kind of what life is about. I've had a lot of students that were in my class write me, and like, the spouse has cancer and I want to come to Hawaii, like all of the things that, so it's like, live your dream now, basically, if you can. Right. And so, yeah, that having a lifestyle business does have a little bit of a bad connotation to it, I think. And like, that's why I didn't want people to know necessarily or clients to know that I live here. I didn't want them to think, because they couldn't get a hold of me right away, which most of the time they can, that I was sitting at the beach. Because they do think that, like, oh, you must be at the beach all the time. No, not really, not enough in it for me. I wish I could be there more often, but so yeah, it's,
well, it's great. It really is. And it's neat to kind of learn about your background and your past and kind of how you got to where you are. It's really an interesting story. And I know that we're going to, as we go on, we'll probably learn a little bit more about you as well. But Rich, I want to give you an opportunity, because we got a thing coming up next week that Lori is a part of. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that real quick.
Yeah. What you are alluding to is our Business Management Online Summit, which takes place on Tuesday, October 11th, a virtual event. So as we have said before, attendance is unlimited, folks. Plenty of room still to sign up if you've got time and want to attend. We are going to have content about differentiating your value proposition in an increasingly crowded MSP market, which is a really important topic right now. We have a great session about right-sizing your tool stack. It's pretty easy to accumulate more tools than you need. Coming up with the right mix of tools is something that we're going to be talking about a little bit. We're going to be joined by Chris Blackman of the JS Shines group. And she's going to moderate a session about sales for people who think they can't sell. And we recorded that one in advance, and I can tell you folks that there is a lot of great advice there for people who are uncomfortable with sales, to show you that anybody can do this in this market. There's a session on EOS and other systems that help you optimize processes. Jennifer Bleem, a MSP consultant, is going to join us for a session about video marketing. I moderated a session about keeping customers happy despite rising prices and supply chain slowdowns, et cetera. So lots of really great, timely, relevant business management advice. And yes, Lori actually is part of that EOS profit first, et cetera session, profiting through process.
And it's going to be great, folks. So where can you go and find out more and register? Go to events.channelpronetwork.com, and there you'll be able to see that event and all the other events we currently have out on the schedule with registration open. And yeah, go sign up, go register. It's I believe, is this one free to join, Rich?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think they always are.
I think the virtual ones are. If not, if you need a promo code, if it's not, use promo code CPVIP. That'll get you. That's the ChannelPro Weekly kind of VP code. So you can use that to bypass any registration fees. Register. You're going to get a lot out of it. Make sure that you attend. It's going to be great. So Rich, we got a lot of show still ahead. Lori's going to be with us the whole time. It's really exciting to get her take on things. We're going to be talking about Enable. I imagine that's kind of where we got two new Enable stories. I guess, are you at an Enable thing? Is that where you're at?
Yep, exactly.
All right, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about another Kaseya acquisition. Pretty soon they're going to own the world. So Kaseya, if you'd like to buy my desktop PC for, I don't know, $1 million, just let me know, and we will make that transaction happen, since they're in the mood to spend a lot of money these days. The 2022 ChannelPro SMB All-Stars hit the website this week. So we're going to be talking about that, going through a couple of those picks. We've got a really, really good interview that we recorded with Brad Gross. He is an attorney at law. We're going to talk about MSA and SLA best practices. We did have to schedule and record that one a little earlier in the week. So for those who are watching on YouTube, you'll get to see a little bit of a wardrobe change as we go back and forth. But it's a really, really great interview, so you're not going to want to miss that. And Lori's part of that as well, which is really fun. And of course, if you're also on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, hit all of the thumbs up things. Leave a comment if you can; it's always very helpful. And do that all while you're on the YouTubes there. That and a lot more ahead, Rich. So let's dive in, and I think we can kind of cover the two Enable stories kind of together. So what's going on at Enable?
Yeah, well, as you said, so I am in Las Vegas. I have been attending Enable's Empower Partner event, which actually concluded yesterday. And a lot going on, obviously, at the show. The biggest piece of product news to come out of it was that they previewed a solution. It doesn't actually reach market, doesn't become available outside of beta anyway to partners until the first part of 2023. But they have a new cloud management tool that they call Cloud Asset Manager coming to the portfolio within a matter of months. Now, rewinding a little bit, in July, Enable acquired a company called SpinPanel that specialized in Microsoft 365 management. And then the very next month, out comes Cloud User Hub, the first cloud management tool from Enable, very much focused on Microsoft 365 SaaS. Cloud Asset Manager focuses more on Microsoft Azure and virtual instances and resources in Azure environments. And so you're going to authenticate to an Azure account. The system's going to download information about all the virtual instances that you're responsible for. You're going to be able to view and monitor and manage those instances. You're going to be able to do some cost optimization. There's some cost optimization functionality built into that. There's some functionality in what Enable calls orphaned resources. You'll hear different terms used to describe this, but it's very easy in a cloud-based virtual environment to have virtual machines that nobody's really using anymore, but somebody is still paying for, and they're going to help flag that for you. Interestingly, and I think importantly, I referenced something called Cloud User Hub and something called Cloud Asset Manager, and it sounds like these are separate products, but really they are modules or components of Enable's RMM systems. They have two now, the cloud-based one called Insight, which is generally speaking for smaller MSPs, and then the on-premises and central, which is for larger MSPs with more complex requirements. Cloud User Hub and Cloud Asset Manager are just kind of built into those RMM systems. And so the idea is you can manage all of the stuff that you're responsible for, devices and networks and cloud resources, through a single interface. And that is kind of a nice setup for the other, like Matt was saying, there are two stories here that have come out so far about the Enable event. I've got a couple more, by the way, coming before the week is out, but we won't talk about those. But I did post a story yesterday in which I spoke a little bit about Enable's cloud strategy, because the news from Enable over the last few months has been totally cloud focused. I think this is going to remain the case for a little bit down the road. And I should say in one of these articles I posted yesterday, they told me at Enable that they have a cloud security product coming in 2023. They weren't too much more specific than that, but there will be another cloud-related module built into the RMM systems that'll help you kind of spot anomalous behavior and et cetera. So they're talking cloud a lot at Enable. And no great surprise, because more and more of what matters and happens for an SMB is happening in the cloud. And what MSPs really need help with is managing all of that. But when I asked them to what degree, and I came at them with this in a number of different ways, you know, how much of your R&D spending is going into cloud? You know, to what extent do you see the future of the company as being in the cloud? And they resisted each and every time that I kind of asked, do you see cloud as the thing that you need to do and MSPs need to do? The theme that they presented, the thing that they see that they need to do and MSPs need to do is manage everything. That term came up over and over again, manage and secure everything, basically, which essentially just means, as various people here at the event said in various ways, endpoints aren't going away, networks aren't going away. You need both of those to access the cloud. The MSP is responsible for all of those assets, the physical ones, the virtual ones, the cloud-based virtual ones. And so what Enable is trying to build is a platform that will, in a centralized kind of way, enable an MSP to support all that stuff, manage and secure everything, which is a little bit in contrast. So it's very similar to the story that Kaseya was telling back in June at their Connect IT event. We know that the next version of their VSA RMM product, which is due before the end of the year, will provide centralized support functionality for workstations and servers, but also agentless IoT devices and native cloud workloads. So, you know, two big names in traditional managed services software, but it is a different take on the market from other companies like Augment, companies like Skyamp, companies like Nerdio, which really do kind of see the future of managed services in the cloud. And it's not that they don't think devices matter. They just kind of think devices are so increasingly commoditized that really all an MSP needs to worry about is making sure that they're patched and they have, you know, MFA and working. The crown jewels are in the cloud. The devices are what you use to get to the crown jewels. So you have to care about the devices to some extent. But what you really need to care about if you want to grow your business is the cloud. And so it is interesting as we watch this whole cloud management story evolve and we watch the big device-oriented RMM PSA companies move towards the cloud, and we watch the smaller kind of startup cloud management, cloud-only kind of vendors grow. It's interesting to see these different analyses of the market and where it's going kind of evolve.
Yeah, it's a story that we've been following here on the show now for a couple of years at least, with some of these smaller companies going into cloud management. And we are seeing a lot more activity with some of these larger ones do that. There's a lot here to kind of break down and digest. But Lori, I want to get your take on the first part of this, which is this kind of like cloud infrastructure management solution that they've put in place. Is your business very heavily invested in cloud stuff or no?
Yes and no. I love the concept, right? I mean, the ability to log in from anywhere, centralize, like I have a few CPA clients installing QuickBooks and Drake and, you know, all of the different programs on 10 different computers every year, you know, when there's a new version. All of those things take a lot of time. So having that centralized is really attractive. But I started out, I found what I thought was good. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was great through Cloud Jumper. You know, they had that model where you could, you basically are buying a desktop through them, and they supported the server side. They did everything. For me, that was perfect. I am not a server guru. I don't want to be. I used to be. You know, I'm just done with that. I'm not necessarily a networking guru. That's why I use Meraki, because I can do the, you know, enough of the basic stuff. But if a client needs anything more advanced, I can just call their support, and that, you know, all that's included. But the cloud, I ended, well, and then, you know, then there's the whole vendor acquisitions, and then that's where, you know, the things sometimes start to fall apart. So I had not that NetApp who bought CloudJumper. It's just the evolution of software too. So now I'm struggling a little bit with what their new product is, because now all of those servers that I had are 5, 6, 7 years old, and now it's time to get, you still have to upgrade or change people over to a newer platform. So I struggle a little bit with the whole, like, is it worth it or not? Then there were issues where like OneDrive really didn't work well in that environment because their environments were older. So it was like this little vicious circle of trying to figure out, what do I do? So I ended up taking a lot of my clients back off and just do things locally again. And then quite honestly, I have very little tickets compared to when they were in the cloud environment. So
Wow.
yeah. So, listening to what all the vendors have to offer, if they can really deliver on that and things really work well, somebody someday will have something really good to offer. But I think and then the other hard piece is there's obviously so many different software programs and situations that all of our clients use that it's hard to, is it really going to work for everything? I also tried the Nerdio. That was a lot of work on my behalf, because now I was responsible for really managing the servers and the images and for my smaller clients, it was not cost effective at all. Cool product, but too much management. So.
We hear that a lot about like tools and just like a lot of Azure based stuff, that it is a lot of work and not always easy to make money. We've heard that before, Rich, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this is actually remind me. So I mentioned Augment, I think a few minutes ago. I actually have a story about some news from them that broke today that'll, by the time people are listening to this or seeing this, it'll have gone up. They added a new edition of their security product. But speaking with them, they were kind of talking about the importance of automation going forward, because to the extent that this cloud management task is a manual one, it really does put limits on the scalability and therefore the ability to just grow for MSP. So they are in particular very focused on automation. I know Enable is very focused on automation. They talked about that a lot at this event. It really is kind of the key to making a lot of these opportunities approachable for channel pros.
Yeah. So Enable says, they're all into the cloud, and they say manage and secure everything. Lori, do you manage and secure everything?
Well, I think we all do our best at, trying to do that. I was just jotting down some notes thinking, just like you get a client that says, hey, we have a new user. And then you're like, okay. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, that shouldn't take very long. And that's like, oh, wait a minute. I have to log into, 4 different portals because there's all the different vendors that, I always want to try to pick what I feel is the best of the best for that particular product. Spams, not that it is necessarily the best, it's what fits my needs the best and is easy to maneuver through the platform. And delivers, easy for the end user too. So it's tough when it comes to is, one vendor going to be able to fulfill all of those checkboxes? I don't know, but
many are trying to. I don't know if any have succeeded in that yet, but that is always the goal, right? One vendor, one pane of glass, one tool to rule them all. I don't know. I've been watching the Lord of the Rings thing, I guess. I have that on my brain. Well, good stuff. Rich, anything else on Enable that we want to talk about or dive into here that's important? Or should we just send folks off to go read these stories on their own?
Yeah, I go off and read these stories, folks. I have a story coming later today about some of the partner success initiatives that they're investing in at the company. I have a really interesting, I haven't written it yet, but I'm already predicting it's really interesting. A story that I'm looking forward to writing tomorrow, based on a conversation I had with Enable's chief people officer. I asked what I thought at the time was kind of a random question. Hey, you must be dealing with a tough hiring climate out there, and what's working for you? And I was kind of thinking, well, this is a much bigger company, probably very different, issues and so on. But she had a ton of really interesting insights that I'm going to share in a story tomorrow. So keep an eye on ChannelProNetwork.com. I've already got actually 3 different Enable stories up there, and I've got at least 2 more coming before the end of the week.
And Rich, we always prejudge your stories as interesting before you write them too, because they always are. They always are, and they're always a good read. And that is one of the things why people need to go to the ChannelProNetwork.com website every day, because that is where they're going to find all these awesome stories that give them all kinds of information on tell them what's going on or help them with their business in other ways. So make sure, folks, you do that. Go and check it out. If you want to check these out, we're going to put them in the show links in the description area. So if you're on your phone, you can open up the show description. You should see the links in there. If you don't, you can always go to ChannelProNetwork.com and find the show page, and we'll put the links there. If you're on YouTube, open the description area and you'll find them as well, because we kind of touch on the surface of a lot of these, but there's usually a lot more meat in these stories, and you can go and check that out, read along as we discuss. We got one other news story that we're going to talk about, Rich, that is up, and I alluded to that in the beginning of the show. Kaseya has opened its wallet yet once again and absorbed another loved company in the IT channel. Who has Kaseya bought today?
It's an interesting thing, Matt, because we've been talking about Kaseya and acquisitions for months, right? Like, I mean, the biggest story of the spring and the summer was Kaseya buying Datto, obviously. And that deal did come together in the spring and the summer of this year. The acquisition we're talking about now actually happened 13 months ago, but it only became official and public this week. And so Kaseya has acquired ConnectBooster. Well-known, well-liked vendor in the industry. ConnectBooster specializes in invoicing and payments collection for MSPs. And so that, and this can be a big pain point for managed service providers. They're spending, if you don't have a tool like this, you can very easily wind up spending a lot of time preparing invoices, going after customers to collect payment and so on. And so ConnectBooster for years now has been streamlining and automating that. They've built up quite a following, I would say, in the channel. And a little over a year ago, Kaseya acquired them. The advantage for ConnectBooster partners, basically, according to Kaseya, is you're going to see more and more integration between the ConnectBooster product and Kaseya product. So right now, just to have something to announce out of the gate, they've already completed what Kaseya likes to refer to as commercial integration. And commercial integration just basically means if you go to Kaseya One, which is like the centralized management hub for Kaseya partners, where you get single sign-on access to all the Kaseya related products you use. You can look at all of your invoicing, you can look at all of your support requests and get account management, and all that kind of stuff is in one place in Kaseya One. If you're a ConnectBooster partner, you're going to have all that information in there as well. But as we go forward in the months to come, you're going to see tighter and tighter, deeper integration between ConnectBooster and other Kaseya systems. So in particular, just to cite some examples that were shared with me, if you use BMS or Autotask, the 2 PSA systems that Kaseya sells right now, instead of having to go into the ConnectBooster interface and set up autopay for your clients that way, it'll be something that you can very easily enable inside of the PSA system. If you're sending an electronic quote to a customer. There will be a button there that the customer can press to say, yes, I want to do automatic payment, and that's all going to get kind of set up automatically. So, you know, from the standpoint of Kaseya, they call their platform IT complete. They want it, you know, strategically speaking, the very essence of how they want to compete with the ConnectWizes and Enables of the world is by offering as complete a portfolio as possible. It therefore makes sense for them to add this particular kind of service to IT complete. And then to make those integrations with other Kaseya products a reason to invest in and utilize IT complete. They did say so. They said a lot of things basically that they always say when they make an acquisition. And I'm not, you know, saying that any of this is not true, but this will all sound familiar, right? So they are going to continue to support any and all existing integrations with ConnectWise, Enable, other, what do you know, if you are utilizing an integration between ConnectBooster and a different vendor other than Kaseya today, those integrations are going to continue to be in place. They will continue to be supported. You're going to have access to a partner program. You know, Kaseya took Datto's partner program. If you're a ConnectBooster partner, Kaseya took Datto's partner program, turned it into the Kaseya-wide partner program. ConnectBooster partners will have access to that. I guess the other thing to note is ConnectBooster was founded by Brady Nash and Ryan Goodman. Longtime ConnectBooster users probably know both those guys. I've certainly interviewed both of them on several occasions. Brady is continuing to run ConnectBooster, which is going to continue to do business as ConnectBooster out of its headquarters in Fargo, North Dakota. Ryan has taken his well-earned money and left the company. Haven't spoken with him, don't know what his plans are, if he's retired or he will pop up somewhere else down the road. But Brady is still running ConnectBooster. ConnectBooster continues to operate as a business unit, a subsidiary of Kaseya, which is what they always do after they acquire a company, and they're going to continue supporting the partners that they brought into this acquisition.
And did they say they're going to be renewing everybody for 3 years upon renewal?
There was if I had the sound effect handy, there was a boom ching there. Nobody, and for the record, let's just specify, nobody is being forced into 3 years. You know, they made a policy change at Kaseya a couple of months ago to remove something that MSPs were very unhappy about. But,
yes, I'm just making a little jab joke. We can even insert the little sound effect there if we want to. So yeah, let's dive in here. And I know before we got going, I know that Lori has some things to say about this particular story. So Lori, I am just going to point the microphone your direction and let you go to town.
Well, for starters, ConnectBooster, those are my peeps. Fargo, you know, North Dakota. Yeah, I always have people say, have you watched the movie Fargo? So yes, I have. But I've been using ConnectBooster for a lot of years, and I felt like that was a really pivotal. I was spending a lot of time chasing down payments, credit card expiration dates, and then in the meantime, paying, you know, a lot in merchant fees. And when I stumbled across ConnectBooster, it really helped change my business. I have 0 AR typically on the first, everything is paid on the first of the month by all my clients. It's mandatory. I no longer accept checks. And then over the course of time, one of the biggest features I liked about ConnectBooster was, you know, if you're in a state where you can do that, you can charge like the convenience fee type thing. And it's all automated, all built in. And I put it on my invoices. If you want to save money, you know, switch over to ACH. And I think now of my, I don't know, close to 35, 40 clients, I think only 6 or 7 are doing credit card. So I'm saving them money. They're helping me save money. I mean, as a small MSP, you're not the bank. You shouldn't be, you know, you need to get paid up front for things. And so I'm pretty strict on that. and it's scalable. So if you do want to grow your business, I had one other MSP, we were talking, and he said, "Oh, I have this really nice lady that she does my deposits for me." And I'm like, "Okay, that's nice. But what happens if that lady, is out sick or decides to quit, and it's not scalable, right?" So, and for the price, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to spend whatever it was, $150, $200 a month. Like, you can't hire somebody to do that and have that kind of automation. Kaseya, when they bought Datto, I'm a Datto Autotask user, I was livid. Like, I didn't sleep, I don't think, that first couple nights. And now that I've heard their story, I guess on the softer side of me is coming around, and I'm starting to think that if they pull through on what they're saying they're going to do, there's talking about potentially our pricing might go down for some products. So I'm still waiting to see that. But yeah, the biggest thing with the 3-year, that's what I just read it blew up since the announcement. And that's what everyone, I'm not signing up for 3 years. And so it's good that you're bringing that little tidbit out, that they are working on changing, or they have changed their policy, because I think that's what we all, as a small MSP, I can't do 3-year contracts. I don't have my clients do 3-year contracts. I feel like too many things happen in our world with vendors, and I can't get locked in for that long. 1 year is fine, but anything beyond that, I struggle with. So, and then hearing about the potential integrations and stuff, I mean, that sounds really good, because like I said, logging into all these different portals is really time consuming, especially when you have, multi-factor authentication and where's my phone? You're spending a lot more time, than what we used to, I think, or at least I feel I am. So
it's got to be scary when you've been using something that's so essential to your flow, your workflow, your operation, and then have it be kind of scooped up and then put in the situation of a lot of unknown. That's got to be a nerve-wracking thing.
Yeah, and I enjoy working with small businesses. I worked at Mayo Clinic for a lot of years, big business, really, and there's a reason why I don't work in a big corporation, and there's reasons why I don't target big companies, and I like the smaller footprint. It's more personable, all those things. So that's the piece I struggle with. It's like they left IT glue alone, but they really left it alone. Like, they haven't done much to it, so I have recently bailed from IT glue and went over to Hoodoo, and I love it. Maybe doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it really works. It's easier, in my opinion. So we'll see what they do with ConnectBooster. Hopefully they do, let like when Cisco bought Meraki is still really the same. So sometimes having the backing of a bigger company for financial reasons is a good thing. So,
yeah. So Rich, they said that they completed this deal 13 months ago. So I guess, Lori, you've been a Kaseya customer under ConnectBooster for 13 months and no one ever knew. Why did they keep it secret for so long? What was the onus for that?
So this is actually a long-standing, like almost policy at Kaseya. And I honestly think this is mostly something that is directly from Fred Vicola, the CEO over there. He has told me on many occasions he hates the kind of acquisition announcement in which a vendor says, we have acquired company X, and you are going to see some really exciting things out of this acquisition. 10 months from now. Like, stay tuned. When he announces an acquisition, he wants to have something that he can immediately share with the partners. And so, I mean, in pretty much any, with the one exception, the one very significant exception of Datto, which was a publicly traded company, and they couldn't keep that secret, that would have been illegal. If you look at pretty much any acquisition they've made in recent years, the deal was actually closed, the contracts were signed months before the news broke publicly, so that they could do some behind the scenes integration and have something sort of concrete to show off when they do break the news.
So that explains why they had me sign that 1-year contract. Okay, I got it.
Interesting. So, Lori, anything else to say on ConnectBooster before we move on?
No, I can't think of anything. I think it's a great product, but I know there's probably others out there too. I'm just not familiar with them.
Yeah, and I guess, folks, anytime there's an acquisition that we know about, I guess we'll just have to see how it changes over time and see what they do with it and see how they integrate it. And, ideally, it'll be a good thing for everybody. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But if you're interested, what do you think is going to happen with ConnectBooster, folks? If you think it's going to be good, bad, indifferent, more of the same, less of the same, send us an email, podcast@channelpronetwork.com. Leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, and let us know what you think. What's going to happen? Is this exciting, not exciting, interesting, not interesting? Let us know. But Rich, I can tell you what is interesting, and it's something that we do every year, and something we get really excited about, and we have long conversations about, sometimes heated arguments, although it wasn't as heated this year, but it in past years, it has been a little heated from time to time. And that, folks, is the ChannelPro SMB All-Star Awards. It's a big deal. Rich, for those who may not be familiar with the All-Star Awards, why don't you tell them about that?
So once a year, ChannelPro draws up a list of vendors and distributors and communities that have done something really significant and impactful and positive for the SMB channel in the last 12 months. And we always kind of underscore in the last 12 months, because these selections are made 100% by the ChannelPro editorial team. That is me and Matt and Colleen Fry. We get together, we decide who the winners are going to be. There's no target number that we go for. It could be 12 companies one year and 18 another. I think it's 22 organizations or people total. We'll talk about that in a moment this year. But we do solicit input, suggestions from our readers. Who do you think should be on the list? And quite often people will tell us about some company that they've been working with for years and really love because they have great account managers and great technical support. We're looking for something specific we can point to that's happened in the last 12 months that has really impressed us, has really benefited our readers. And yeah, the latest list just went out on Monday, October 3rd.
Yay, it's out. And like I said, it wasn't as heated of an argument this year, but we had, you said what, we ended up with 22 with this one. And like you said, there's never like we have to have 22 or we have to have 20, or like we could, if we could only come up with 6, that there's going to be 6, but it's got to be something specific that we can look at. I mean, we know, Rich, as you said, there's lots of great companies out there, but we're looking to illustrate those companies which have done something impactful or potentially impactful. Sometimes we'll go with the potentially impactful route. And sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but there's always something specific. So, Rich, we've got 22 of them here. Let's just dive in. Let's talk about all 22 all at once. Folks, settle in. We're going to be talking about this for the next 6 hours. No. Rich, why don't we highlight a couple? Lori, did you peruse the All-Stars list?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, we will just talk about a few of the picks. Rich, if you want to pick out a few, and then we'll just send folks off to browse the list themselves. Rich, go ahead.
Well, I mean, just because it's so timely, given where we started things out on the show, I'll point out that both Enable and Nerdio made the list. And in fact, if you go to the webpage, which we will link to from the show notes with all the all-star winners, they happen to line up side by side because they both have names that begin with N. So Enable got an all-star award because we've been waiting at ChannelPro, watching and waiting for the big names, the incumbents out there, the Enables and Dattos and Kaseyas and ConnectBuises, to get serious about cloud management, because this is such a big need among MSPs. And Enable was really the first of the pack to do that with that Cloud User Hub product that we were talking about before. And so we recognize them for that. We also kind of recognize them because the Cloud User Hub product was based on technology they acquired along with a company called SpinPanel. They bought SpinPanel, or at least told the world they bought SpinPanel in July, and Cloud User Hub came out in August, and that was pretty impressive, actually, to act so quickly on that. So we gave Enable an all-star. We also gave Nerdio an all-star because they moved a little bit in the other direction. So like I was talking about before, it's endpoints still matter if you're running a cloud-first managed services practice. It's not like you can ignore the endpoints, but there are only certain aspects of the endpoint that you really care about. And back in February, Nerdio announced that they had imported some functionality from Microsoft Endpoint Manager and embedded it basically into their management product so that you could do cloud management for Microsoft and endpoint management, the pieces of endpoint management that matter in a cloud environment through the same console. And so you have, one born in the cloud company, Nerdio, moving a little bit in the direction of hardware management, and another, born in the hardware, let's call it, company kind of moving in the direction of cloud. And both of them got all-stars from us this year because they are headed in that headed towards that place where the MSP lives right now, where they're responsible for all this stuff.
Yeah, two very, very good picks, I think, and very interesting picks. Rich, what else do we want to? Maybe I'll pick out a couple, because I tend to argue for some of the more techie ones. So I'll say that let's see, we should talk about Skyamp, because we did give him an all-star this year, and I think it's deserved. I really do. Rich, talk about Skyamp.
So yeah, I totally think that this is deserved as well. And this was a suggestion Matt brought to the table, and I just was immediately on board with it. So if you are a regular listener or viewer of ChannelPro Weekly, you will recall that back in the spring, I spoke about this product from a company called Skyamp, very young company, very new product. And essentially it amplifies wireless signals. That could be Wi-Fi, that could be mobile phone, anything wireless. It boosts the range and the strength of the signal. The mind-bending thing about this product is that it does this without any power source whatsoever. You do not plug it in. It doesn't have a battery. There are no solar panels involved. You take this thing out of the box, you set it on a shelf somewhere, and it can't be a metal shelf. This is like, the only kind of clue that we really have about what's going on. But it just out of the box, it starts boosting signals, and there's no power source. And so I was talking about this product on the podcast back in the spring, and Matt and our guest host that week, Barb Paluskowitz, were just very skeptical. It was just hard to believe that what I was telling them this product does was possible. And of course, it's all patented. Like, I can't explain how it works. And so I couldn't break down the skepticism. And so some weeks later, we got the founder and head of the company onto the show to talk with us in more detail about this product and how it works. And apparently he did a very good job of persuading Matt that it does in fact work, because like I said, he said, we need to make Skyamp one of this year's all-stars.
It's a product of black magic, but if it, I'm convinced, and we've gotten testimonials that it really does work, and that is amazing and well deserved of recognition, because that is a very impactful thing that people. Laura, have you seen this product? Do you know what Skyamp is?
No, I was just looking at the list though, and it sounds very interesting. I think it could actually be useful for a couple of our clients, so we'll have to look into it.
Yeah, go check it out. And if you implement any of them, let us know your results, because I am very, very interesting. And I'm trying to get my hands on one personally to test. Rich, we got to make that happen. We got to get back in touch with
Definitely.
What was his name? I always forget.
That Jason Howell, I believe. I hope I'm right.
I think that sounds correct. Yeah, we should get him back on the horn and see if we can get our hands on one for a little while. Yeah, so that's a good one. Let's see, we've got a couple other tech related ones. AMD and Intel are both made the list this year for various processor related advancements and achievements. AMD specifically for their 3D V-cache technology, which is also like black magic. But for those who know how processors work, you get various forms of cache off of the processor. L3 cache is very important. The bigger you make that, faster you can do processing, but it takes up a lot of physical space in the die. So AMD has come up with some way where they can put in they can put in the L3 cache, and then they can physically manufacture L3 cache and stack it on top of the existing the L3 cache, so they can start stacking it up and stitch it all together. I don't know how they do it. It sounds also like black magic to make that happen, but they do it, and we're probably going to see that in a lot more processors going forward. So that'll be very market changing thing. We gave Intel some kudos for bringing how would we put this, Rich, for bringing specialized cores into x86 processing. So in their 12th gen, which I know was announced, they just announced their 13th gen, but this was in the last 12 months, especially from when we made these picks. But that was the first time we've seen specialized CPU cores in the x86 world. We've seen that in the ARM world before, but I think going forward, the way we're going to increase speeds in PCs and increase battery life is to start specializing for specific workloads and tasks. So we're seeing that, and I think that will be a ongoing trend in the CPU manufacturing space. Rich, why don't we highlight one more, and then we'll send folks to go check out the list.
Yeah, absolutely. So the All-Stars were originally conceived as awards that would go to organizations, businesses, vendors, distributors. In 2019, ConnectBooster was acquired by Thoma Bravo, by private equity. Arnie Bellini, who founded that company, grew it up to this massive presence in the managed services world, stepped down as CEO. He's still on the board, but he sort of stepped away from the company beyond that. And we just kind of decided amongst ourselves that we needed to sort of commemorate, his accomplishments with ConnectBooster. And so we handed out the first ever ChannelPro Lifetime Achievement All-Star Award that went to Arnie Bellini in 2019. We had never given a person an award before. We haven't given anyone an award since, until this year. The second ever Lifetime Achievement Award winner is Paul Dipple of Service Leadership. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in the audience right now who understand completely why he sold his company to ConnectBooster actually not that long ago, and he is essentially retired right now. He's in a well-earned retirement. And we just wanted to commemorate that milestone, because he has been enormously influential and helpful to so many MSPs out there. He is particularly well known for the data set that Service Leadership continues to accumulate on a quarterly basis. It's the best benchmarking data set really out there in the industry. And they have these tools that you can use to sort of act on that data and come up with a road plan for improving your performance against benchmarks and so on. So he's just had a huge influence on a lot of MSPs, and we just wanted to kind of call that out as he steps off now to play golf or whatever it is Paul likes to do.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great pick. Well deserved. And I love the fact that, like, we don't have to like force ourselves to come up with a lifetime achievement winner every year. Like if someone comes up, we will give the award, and if someone does, we won't. And that's the way the All-Stars works. That's what makes it kind of unique and special, is we're not, trying to be like, oh, here's the top 500 companies, and you're just talking about the same 500 companies, all the time, because they're all good. But a few other ones on the list. HPE hit the list. Gradient MSP is on the list. Citricom and CyberInt. Why? Well, you're just gonna have to go to channelpronetwork.com to find out. Open the show notes and hit the link to go and read about the All-Stars and let us know what you think. You agree? You disagree? Let us know. We want to know your opinion. Podcast at channelpronetwork.com. And we will say this too, Rich, and I think this is an important note. You might be able to think, listener or viewer, that there was this company that did this big thing and I think it qualified for an All-Star. Why didn't X company get it? And we can only say we can only award the things that we know about. So we may not have known about it. So if you want to let us know about stuff when we solicit for feedback, shoot your suggestions and thoughts on why you think a certain company will deserves an All-Star award for next year, and we will certainly consider it. We have considered many reader suggestions, haven't we, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. And I get emails sometimes from PR folks who are like, well, when do nominations begin? When do they close? And it's a much more informal process than that. The piece of the process that really matters is when the editorial team gets together and makes the selections. But you can reach out to me, reach out to Matt, reach out to ChannelPro at any time of the year, basically, and you don't have to be a PR person either, and just say, hey, this vendor did something that's really important. You should consider this for an All-Star award. And we absolutely keep track of that and look at suggestions that come in over the course of the year. So if something happened last week that you think is positive and impactful, let us know.
Yep, absolutely. And the only requirements is that it's got to be within the last 12 months of when we made our last selections, and not everybody knows when that is, but it has to be within the last year. So if you're thinking of something that happened 3 years ago, that's not going to be considered, and it has to be something specific. You can't just say, X company is really great, they're super nice to work with. Like, that's not good enough. You got to be able to say something specific. So very cool stuff. Lori, I'll give you a chance. You perused the list. What do you think? Did you any of those stand out to you?
Well, I was happy to see 4 or 5 of them that I'm using are on that list. So I use Keeper and Pax8, Citricom, and Lenovo has kind of been my go-to lately. So yeah, it looks like a good list.
Very cool. So go and check it out, folks, and let us know what you think. I am excited. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Brad Gross. He is an attorney at law. We're going to be talking about some various stuff. Like I said earlier, you're going to see a wardrobe change if you're watching on YouTube, because we recorded this earlier in the week due to scheduling reasons. But it's an awesome interview. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick around. We will be right back. Are you an MSP who is recommending Dell hardware to your end users? If so, then you'll want to check out the Dell Expert Network. The new Dell Expert Network program is a rewards and incentives program designed for service-focused MSPs who are supporting the small business market. This program is designed to deliver value and save time for MSPs who are recommending their end users to purchase Dell hardware. Currently, Dell Expert Network customers get an additional 3% back in Dell rewards when they buy Microsoft servers. Check out the Dell Expert Network today. And welcome back to part 2 of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. We've got a really interesting interview and discussion coming in this segment. Now, properly setting expectations with your customers is critical, and having a properly defined and well-documented MLA and SLA plays a very important role to protect both you and your customer throughout the term of service. Now, here to share some of the best practices when defining those MLAs and SLAs is attorney at law, Brad Gross. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks. Good to be here, guys. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to have you you joining us today. We got a big conversation ahead and a lot of fun stuff. But for those who may not know you and a little bit of your background, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
Sure. So I am the owner of self-titled law firm. We represent MSPs, VARs, service providers, and so forth globally. I can say with a high degree of confidence that we have counseled or represented well over 6,000 MSPs over 20 years. So, or at least I have over 20 years. And really looking forward to our discussion today.
Yeah, interesting. So when you were kind of defining what your customers were going to be, when you were thinking about throughout this stuff, did you have like a big list? We're like, dentists, nah, I don't want to represent them, and then like bakeries, nah, not for me. Airlines, nah. How'd you land on MSPs?
First of all, don't preclude bakeries so fast. It depends on the bakery. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there. I landed on MSPs as part of an evolutionary process. Way back in 2002, 2003 or so, I read the tea leaves and I saw that we called them application service providers back then, or ASPs. ASPs started to take root, right? The industry started to gain momentum. So I became involved in the ASP industry. I had a background as a programmer, prosecutor of computer crime, and so forth. I figured I could put my focus right into that area. And as ASPs evolved to XSPs, evolved to MSPs, now MSSPs, or pick your consonants, whatever you're going to throw in there. It sort of just evolved to where it is today.
Wow, very, very interesting. Now, I guess you're in the Fort Lauderdale area. Is that what I heard you say earlier?
I am. We hang our hats in Weston, which is the westmost part of Fort Lauderdale. We have clients everywhere, but if you'd say, where am I located right now? Well, behind me is 80 degrees and sunny on a beautiful South Florida day. Eastern South Florida. We did not get hit with the hurricane. We sort of missed that. Thank goodness. Sorry for, it's a shame what went on the West Coast. It's horrible, but thank goodness we were spared of that here on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, to see if you got swept up in any of that, but yeah, you were definitely in the right area of Florida to avoid this one.
Yeah, we just had a little rain, a little wind, really nothing to complain about, certainly.
Awesome. And of course, I'm glad that you got through there, and we've got Lori still with us. We're going to have an excellent discussion here about MLAs and SLAs. Lots to dive in here, but for, let's just assume that some of our listeners just started their businesses yesterday and they have no idea what an MLA or an SLA is. What is that?
Me? You want me to jump in? Okay. I didn't know.
Go ahead and define that.
So, every MSP, in my view, every service provider of any sort, whether it's in the technology industry or otherwise, but we'll focus obviously on MSPs for now, should have a master services agreement, a master agreement that is its constitution, that governs everything it does. And in my view, it should never change. It should be service and cost and price agnostic, and everyone must accept it. So you'd say, well, how do we get there, right? How do we get to a situation where we have a document that is price agnostic, service agnostic, it never changes, and everyone accepts it? Well, we could talk about that today, but that is the fundamental of an MSA. And of course, SLAs, it's funny because SLAs, from my perspective, it's actually a misnomer. Service level agreements are actually not separate agreements. Service levels are service level promises, right? Service level guarantees that are inside of another document. Usually an SLA is not a standalone document. So we have master service agreement, that is your constitution. Everything else is going to be a service in a different document, like a quote or a statement of work and so forth.
Brad, the answer to this question may have nothing to do with MSAs, but in your experience working with so many MSPs, what is the thing when an MSP gets sued? What is the most common reason for that? And to what extent could they protect themselves from that risk better if they were more rigorous, more careful about a contract like their MSA?
Well, I'll tell you that without question, the most vicious, the most expensive, the most just stomach churning type of disputes that occur between MSPs and their customers are almost always, and by almost, I mean 9 out of 10, maybe even more than that, relate to mismanaged expectations. It is not due to an MSP's failure to provide a service. That is so rare. I'm telling you, you count on one hand the number of times, and literally in the past decade, that I've seen that. And like I said, we've counseled thousands of MSPs. It is usually involving a mismanaged expectation. I mean, I could give you an example, but that is the reason why MSPs get into trouble.
Yeah, well, go ahead and do give an example or two, because I'm wondering if I framed the question in terms of the MSA, but I'm wondering if it's maybe the SLA that's more relevant here in terms of setting expectations properly.
Well, it's the entire description of services. So, for example, let's say, Rich, you were providing me, let's say you're an MSP and you were providing me a backup and disaster solution. Okay, so you're providing that to me. And it is now on my clock here as we're recording this, it's 1:17 p.m. Okay, so I call you up and I say, Rich, listen, my biggest client's about to walk in the door at 1:30. Files are gone. Where'd they go? I don't know. They're gone. Did you delete them? I don't know, Rich. I need them back. And here's the thing. It's coming in at 1:30. It's about 100 megs of files. And I need you to get that done for me right now. Get it done. Now, could you do that? The answer is you have no idea. No one on this call, no one watching this could possibly know if you could do that. Why? Because, first of all, you don't even know why the stuff disappeared, right? Could be cryptovirus, could be a cryptovirus, could be that I accidentally deleted it. It could be that network drives aren't mapped. It could be a whole bunch of things. So first, you have to determine why this is happening and whether the spot to which you are going to recover the data is even available. Then you need to look for a tech to get all this done. We're talking about 100 megs of files, and now it's 1:18. So now you have 12 minutes. That's a problem, because if you can't do it for me, then I'm likely not going to say to you, Rich, well, just tell me what time you're available and we'll get it done, right? I'm going to say, Rich, I don't know what you're talking about. I pay you for this service, right? Backup and disaster recovery. This is my disaster. I need recovery. You have the backup. And if you can't get it done for me in the next now 11 minutes, here's what we're doing. I'm not paying you for this month. And you know what? I'm not even confident about your services. So I'm not going to pay you. I want out. I'm terminating our agreement. That is reality. That's reality. Reality is not that you didn't provide me a service. Reality is you didn't manage my expectations. So I have unrealistic expectations, and now we're in it, right? Now we're battling. Who's right? Well, $400, $500, $600 an hour. Lawyers will argue all day long about who's right. They're going to argue it very slowly. And, the only person who really loses is the MSP. So conceptually, if you're going to now come full circle to your question, where are the problems? What causes the biggest mismatch? Mismanaged expectations. MSPs, in their zeal to get jobs in the door, right, to get things signed and moving, they either make promises they can't keep, or they don't provide enough description in their service portion of their documents so that the customers are sort of left to their own devices. Right? It says backup disaster recovery. I could call Rich. It's 1:20. He has 10 minutes. It's plenty of time to give me 100 megs. Rich, get that done. And here we go. That's the problem that we see in the industry. And that has to be considered and accommodated in your documents.
So I'd love to get Lori's take on all that you just said. Lori, is that reality that you have to deal with on a daily basis?
Well, fortunately, I have a lot of really small clients, and they all have really not been that forceful. So I haven't really ran into that kind of a situation, but I know other colleagues, where that what he's explaining, Brad is explaining, has happened to, where the lack of expectation has been a problem. So it's really, there's a lot of gray area, I feel, too, with expectations on what a client expects. And it's hard for us as an MSP to really explain some things too, because it goes over everyone's head and they don't understand how difficult and all of the hoops we have to go through behind the scenes. I try not to say too much to my clients because I get the deer in the headlight look. And so it's a tough, I think a kind of a tough area to explain.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to say that it's easily explained, right? But that is where we see the most friction. And it doesn't even have to apply to a BDR. It could apply to anything. It could apply to security services, right? Where a customer signs up for maybe your basic, if you have one, basic plan, and then something happens and they turn around and say, why wasn't I protected? Well, you signed up for the basic, right? You didn't get the XDR, the SIM solution, the whatever it is. And they don't understand why they didn't. They don't even understand what they have and what they don't have. And that is where the issues occur. But you're right, Lori, it is not easy to explain that to customers for sure.
I think having regular scheduled like technical business reviews or of some sort that where you can have that opportunity to explain and maybe do it in little, you know, baby chunks, I guess, of information and not just go all out and, you know, explain how difficult our jobs are behind the scenes. I think if you can give them just, you know, little bits of expectation on a regular basis, I think that helps.
For sure. I think quarterly or regular business meetings is crucial because the industry changes, solutions change, needs change. And if you don't meet with your customers from time to time, your customer will assume that you're implementing the latest and greatest, but they're not paying for it, right? So they might not be getting it. And I agree with Lori 100%. It's crucial to have this ongoing stickiness with your customers.
And so contracts are not, you know, the only vehicle for expectation setting. It certainly sounds like. I mean, some of this is having a relationship and an ongoing dialogue with the customer. But there was sort of an implied guideline about contract writing there before, Brad, where it sounded like you need to be relatively specific in say a master services agreement about what you are and are not committing to doing. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah.
How can expectation setting play into your MSA?
It's a good question. So the analogy that I have come up with over the past year or so, and it's what I preach whenever I speak about this issue, is an analogy of buying a television set. It is actually a perfect analogy. You'd say, what does this have to do with it? Trust me, it'll get there. If you buy a television, if you look on your wall and you say, look, I like this TV I have here. It's a Samsung, whatever it is. I want another one for the other room, but how much did I pay for it? What model is it? Where did I buy it? And what credit card did I use to buy it? You could look at the receipt, right? The receipt tells you that. But if you said, how do I program the resolution of this thing? And, you know, the sound bar in the other room, it's a little different. How do I get that to work with the TV and the remote? How do I program it? You can't look at the receipt. The receipt doesn't tell you it. What manages your expectations? What teaches you about what the TV can do and can't do? The user manual. Right? Comes with a user manual. The receipt tells us some things. The user manual tells us other things. Collectively, they work together to tell you what the TV can do, what it costs, what it can't do, how to troubleshoot it, and so forth. So the question that I always pose to people in the audience is, your quote is where you're describing your services, right? You're describing your services in the quote. This is what you're going to get. Do you want that quote to look like a receipt or a user manual? If it's a receipt, well, it's easy. I mean, it's short, it's to the point. Think about the receipt of buying a TV, right? It tells you one model, Samsung, you know, 6,000, whatever. Here's what it costs. Here's when you bought it. Here's where you bought it. But the problem with that is you haven't explained how to program that TV, have you? You haven't managed my expectations about that TV. All you've told me is what I'm paying. Maybe you want that quote to look like a user manual. Describe everything there is to know about a service. If you're getting our backup and disaster recovery service, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put software agents on covered devices defined this way. Here's how often we back up your stuff. Here's how much we're backing it up. Here's where it's going. You need it back. Here's what you need to do. Spell it out, right? You're managing expectations. Problem, then your quote's 50 pages long. So what do? The answer is, in my view, you do both. You turn your quote into a receipt and you create for your company a user manual. A manual just like Samsung, just like LG, pick your favorite TV. They don't change the manual for every TV they create, right? Instead, what does it say? It says, if you purchase this TV model, you get these features. This TV model, those features. Well, I like those. Do I get those? I don't know. What does the receipt say? My receipt says I bought model 6000. User manual. If you bought model 6000, this is what you get. Well, the same thing can apply to MSPs. You can create a manual of all the services that you provide in as much detail as you want. And the idea is that that would map to your quote. So if you come, you offer some sort of, Rich Freeman complete care BDR, that's in the quote. You tell how many, how much, right, and so forth. Then your user manual would say, if you bought the Rich Freeman complete care BDR, here's what you're going to get. Boom, boom, boom. And what you've done is you've now managed expectations by laying out in as much detail as you want, right, in the user manual. Will they read it? Well, if they want to, they can. But the idea is you present that and make it clear at the front of the relationship, at the top of the relationship, that this is where we have our services. This is how we do things. Before you sign this quote, understand this is our user manual, and that's how it's going to go. Now you've managed expectations. And if there are mismanaged expectations, well, at least you have a foothold to say, we gave you a manual. We told you it exists. It's in minute detail. Take a look. And at least you're in a better place than a client simply looking at you and going, Rich, now you got 2 minutes. You never told me that you couldn't get my backup done this quickly. So now we have a problem. I'm here to help MSPs avoid problems.
So a big part of the MSA, it sounds like, is defining the services that you deliver and setting expectations for what is entailed in subscribing to or consuming those services. Are there other kind of core elements or components in the MSA that are important too? And particularly, are there any that, don't get as much attention, sometimes get omitted from these agreements that need to be there? I mean, I'm just off the top of my head, it's like, well, how are we going to resolve disputes, arbitration?
Well, I'll tell you this. So the services in the service guide to me should be a different document, a standalone document that is referenced in the MSA, right? The MSA will say, because the MSA should be service agnostic. There should be no services in your MSA. Instead, it says, or should say, the services that you're going to get are in a quote that we'll give to you. The quote, the services in the quote might be defined with a user manual, a services guide as well. MSA is just service agnostic. And in my view, it needs to deal with 2 overall areas. And if it doesn't, it's junky MSA. The first is legal, as we all know, right? The stuff lawyers write. But the second, and this is what I preach all the time, is reality. Reality-based contracting is what MSPs need to be thinking about, because you could have a legal provision that says neither party is liable for special exemplary consequential damages, so on and so forth. But you don't lay in bed at night, I hope you don't, looking up at the ceiling thinking, God, I really hope my consequential damage provision is going to hold up. I mean, that's not where you are. You're in the real world. You're in a world where customers decline your services. That's reality. Right? You're in a world where they decline the service and then they point the finger at you when they don't get it. You're in a world where upstream providers fail, right? And you can't control upstream providers, but I would question your viewers, your listeners, about how many of their documents actually say that, how many describe that. And then there's the mind-blowing example that I like to give that really makes everybody sort of sit back and go, that's a good one, right? Which is this. There are certain services that you provide as an MSP. That's about 2% of what you do. The rest, you facilitate. Difference. Think about it. There are services you provide, and then there are some you facilitate. You don't provide a BDR solution. You facilitate it. You might provide a desktop install. You might provide certain services directly. For the most part, you facilitate. And then the question I pose to the audience is, so why are you taking on the responsibility of an upstream provider? Why aren't you pointing out that there are some things that are coming from a third party? And to the extent they come from a third party, we can't offer you anything more than they give. And if something goes wrong, the best we can do is provide a workaround if one's available. Other than that, We're all in this boat together. That's what an MSP should be. I'm sorry, an MSA should be focused on, reality. And if we sat back and we thought about it, Lord knows I think about it, there are a couple of dozen, probably 30, 35 realities that we get all the time. And yet you look at these MSP agreements and they don't deal in reality, they deal in legal. But legal is, I mean, it's important if you really get yourself into trouble. How many MSPs get themselves into trouble on a frequent basis? Very, very few, but they deal with reality every day.
So you said before, the MSA is the Constitution. It doesn't change, or
Right.
at least it doesn't change a lot, doesn't change often. But
Yeah.
as we're talking about this, and people in the audience are maybe thinking, well, that's absolutely spot on, and I don't deal with realities like that. It's all legalese right now in my MSA. I mean, how cautious should people be about making changes to their agreement, and what's the best way to kind of manage that when it is appropriate to change an MSA?
Well, the question of what to do when you realize that you have a junky agreement in place is one that MSPs face all the time. How do you, let's say that we provide a beautiful MSA that covers legal, covers reality, contemplates a quote with a service guide, the whole thing. Now you turn around and say, this is wonderful, but I have 25 customers that are under my crappy MSA in the past, some of which don't even have an MSA. It's like a handshake. What do we do? It's a good question, which I can answer. Here's what you do. First of all, I'll tell you what you can't do. Let me divest everybody of the idea that you can just simply send something to your customer saying, we've updated our terms, and you've made material changes, and we've updated our terms, and this is what our terms are from now on. You cannot do that. Hard stop. Now, you'd say, well, don't credit card companies do that? Right? Don't they always update their terms and then say, this is how it is? The answer is no, they don't. What they do is they say to you, we are going to update our terms as of a certain date in the future. And if you don't like it, well, then before that date happens, stop using our card. Pay us what you owe us under the old agreement. And, we part ways. Everything is good. That doesn't work for MSPs. Why? Because you have upstream providers to whom you owe licensing requirements. You have Microsoft NCE promises and so forth. You can't just turn around to your customer and say, I'm updating my terms 2 months into a 3-year deal. If you don't like it, just stop using this stuff next month, because now you're stuck with 33 months of licensing. So what do? First thing you can do is ask your customers if you can update your terms, but you don't just simply say, do you mind? Right? Instead, blame your attorney. I tell my clients to do that all the time. Blame me. Our attorney requires this. Our attorney requires, for uniformity and for insurance purposes, whatever it might be, you have to talk to your counsel. She requires this to happen. So this is what we're doing. We're offering you this quote. It's governed under our new MSA. We even have a service guide that tells you what we're doing for you and what you should expect. If this is all satisfactory to you, please sign. This is our document moving forward. Parties are free to change their minds and enter into new agreements at any time, as long as it's consensual. Right? What if they don't sign? Or what if you are nervous about sending that type of email because now you're going to raise the red flag? Then the answer is you wait for a renewal point. That's what you do. And you send out renewal quotes that are based on or governed under your new documents. And the idea is that as you renew services over time, the services under your old documents will die off by attrition. And now you'll be under your new documents. That's the way to do it. I mean, I'm sure we could probably, brainstorm other ways, but those are the ways that I would recommend thinking about doing it.
So the MSA is the constitution of your business. You've got a service guide potentially as well to help with expectation setting. What is the role of the SLA in relation to these other documents we've been talking about?
Sure. So in SLA, right, service levels should be, in my view, in your service guide, because SLAs first of all, they may change. depending on how much I'm paying you, right? If Matt's paying me $1,000 a month, he can call me 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. If Matt's paying me 50 grand a month, he's going to have my mother's cell phone number, my brother's cell phone number. He can call me anytime he wants, right? These service levels are going to change. So if something is money dependent or time dependent, doesn't go in the MSA, goes somewhere else. My view, you should offer your service levels in your service guide, describe all what you have. If you have our gold plan, right, our precious metal plans, our gold plan, here's our service level. Silver, here's our service level. Bronze, here it is. Well, I like that service level. I like the silver. Do I have that? I don't know. Look in the quote. What does the quote say? So remember, quote's like a receipt. So we look at the quote. It says, Brad bought silver plan. Great. That's how you can define it. If there is something that is very specific, maybe a one-off kind of thing, like for this project, I am going to give you a lot of money, but I want to call you 24/7, put that in the quote. If your documents are written correctly, the quote, the latest and greatest thing that you sign should be the thing that controls the relationship. So in my view, MSA doesn't have service levels because they're changing. Service guide should have them, and any changes to that would go in the quote.
And so it sounds like there is more flexibility over timing in terms of updates to the SLA data. It's not on the MSA. It may or may not even be something that's sort of contractual and so I mean, what's the procedure if you want or need to adjust your SLAs?
So the idea, again, going back to what I said earlier, you can't unilaterally change a material contract term, because if you can do that at any time, then you don't have a contract, right? You don't have a contract. If I said, I'm going to paint your house on Friday, and you're going to give me 10 grand, and I'm going to paint it this color white right here, and you give me 10 grand, and my contract with you says I could change this at any time. I could change the terms. So you pay me, and then I turn around and say, you know what? I'm not painting it Friday. I'm painting it next year, and it's going to be this color right here, this color. And that's how it is. Well, I've just changed the terms on you. That's not if I can do that, we don't have a contract. We have nothing that's enforceable. So if you want to change your service levels to something that is materially or substantially worse than you're offering, you're either going to have to get consent from your customer, or you have to ask for permission in the way we talked about earlier, or you wait until a renewal point. And then on the renewal, you offer a different service level. But I would never recommend changing course in the middle of a relationship, just reducing or changing a service level if it's going to diminish or injure your customer's ability to get service. You want to make it better. It was 9 to 5. Now it's 9 to 6. God bless you. Do it. Right. But you want to move it from 9 to 5 to 12 to 10. No, I mean, I'm not open at 10. Are you? Right? 10 p.m. So that would be a material change I think you would need to talk to your customer about.
Well, personally, I thought that color was very nice. So I wouldn't be upset if you changed it to that.
The silver? Yeah, it's not bad.
I thought it was pretty nice looking.
That's the swing line latest and greatest. Yes.
So I like a lot of what you're saying. I
like everything I'm saying. Just a lot.
I want to bring Lori in for a second, because I know that like you're dealing with customers, and I also deal with a lot of technical things, and having like this having your SLA set up and your MSA, and then having this kind of like service manual, if you will, to your business is a good thing. But it seems like you'd want to make sure that some key things are communicated and understood, and before you get to a point where you have a customer who's mad at you and you're just saying, RTFM, right? Lori, what kinds of things are super important to communicate, or what are some of the things that you're doing to communicate these important steps to your customer?
Yeah, well, I think kind of going back to having just regular sit downs, technical business reviews, whatever you want to call them. And just, I like to have business talks with my clients, not get technical, but just expectations and what, kind of give them some what if scenarios, like what if this happens? like how quickly do you expect us to recover, just so that there is the expectation of, you know, what our services can deliver. A lot of my clients know it's primarily me, and then I have a part-time tech. So thankfully they've all been pretty forgiving if I can't just jump on something. But I feel very confident in the vendors that I have selected. So that's kind of huge. And I like what Brad said, you know, by having like a user guide, I think it would force us to standardize, because I know there's a lot of MSPs that have so many different products. I don't know how you can possibly standardize, you know, like different firewalls, different backup solutions. So having that user guide, I think that's a great idea. Would you know, kind of force us to streamline, make things a little bit more simple. But I did have a question for Brad. Well, I have a couple of them actually. So would having a lack of a contract, like if people that just don't even have anything, what rights does a client have to come back and take action against an MSP?
Well, so if you don't have a written agreement, that doesn't mean you don't have a contract. That just means that you have a deal on which the material, or at least hopefully some of the material points are agreed upon, like I'm going to bill you monthly, this is how much I'm billing you, you're going to pay me, and so forth. The problem is that you don't have much more than that. So you have an enforceable deal, the terms of which are ambiguous and vague. And when something happens, when something goes wrong, an MSP, you know, often I'll hear an MSP say, I don't like to put it in writing, because if I put it in writing, then I have to commit to it, or they'll feel like this is the standard I have to hit. But I've put my kids through college on MSPs that have taken that approach. They end up paying quite a bit because it's not, you know, the MSP says, well, now I don't have any standards to adhere to. No, client turns around and says, on the contrary, you're going to adhere to what everyone else in the industry is doing, what a similarly situated MSP should do, what the standard of care should be in this industry. And now we're going to battle, right? And now we're going to fight over it. So it's not that you don't have a contract, you have a contract, but you're going to end up fighting over the terms. So in my view, you want to save money, put the terms down. More detail is better. Now, I'm not saying that you lock yourself into a particular vendor. I'm not saying that security awareness, let's say, and there are a lot of great solutions out there, right? CyberGuard and KnowBe4, Bullfish, and okay, all of them. I'm not suggesting that you say, we provide you with Bullfish. No, but what I am saying is that in the user guide, you could talk about what security awareness is. 24/7 online, on-demand video, multiple languages. We give unit tests. You can go back and take these things again if your employee doesn't, you know, feel like he or she has learned enough. You're going to learn the results. You can find out who's vulnerable. Here's phishing campaign. Here's how we do it. Boom, boom, boom. Now, what solution have I described? Bullfish, sure, and KnowBe4, and Secure Breach Now, right? I mean, run through them. I'm not saying you have to be vendor specific, but you should be descriptive. And I think that would go a long way in the industry to helping MSPs avoid mismanaged expectations. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it's very good. And then my second question is, so I know a lot of MSPs now have clients in multiple states. So would that require having a, you know, a different MSA or any kind of contract or user guide, any of those guides, would they need to be different?
State specific?
Yeah.
So in truth, if your MSA is written correctly, there's very little in an MSA that is generally state specific. You know, if you're in California, for example, you have to think carefully before you include a non-solicitation or a non-compete, right? If you're in Texas, you have to think carefully before you lower the statute of limitations, time in which you can be sued or sue your customer. There are a lot of different little state specific things, but generally speaking, a contract that says, listen, Lori, I'm going to provide you with advice, and you should take my advice. And if you don't take my advice and something bad happens, that's on you. That's not on me, and it will be a billable event. Now, I don't care what state you're in. That's just reality. So it's a good question. Do these contracts have to be state specific? You have to be aware of the different restrictions that states have, but for the most part, they're not. A reality-based contract is not state specific. It's reality to the industry. You just have to know what you're talking about. The lawyer, the attorney, has to know what he or she is talking about when drafting that type of document.
Excellent.
So this came up earlier, and I think you kind of hinted at it again just now. There's actually a third kind of agreement out there. We've been talking MSA and SLA, but what is a decline of service agreement?
A declination. Wow, you're hitting all the big ones today, Rich. My God, we are giving your viewers an education. All right, a declination notice, and I just. For an unabashed plug, I just did a podcast on this, and I just did a newsletter on LinkedIn about this exact topic. What is a declination letter, and what should it be? Because most MSPs are doing it entirely incorrectly. Entirely. I was just speaking about this in a conference up in New Jersey, and I said to the audience, I said, okay, a customer declines an important service. And what do? You send them something, right? Send them a letter, and everyone will, oh yeah, we send them a letter. And you have them sign off on that, right? So they know that they've declined this service. Yeah, and some people say, I even have them sign a waiver and so forth. Okay. And then I turn around and say, you're all wrong. Everything that you just said is wrong. And let me tell you why. And with that, I'm going to take out a pen. I need a pen for this demonstration. Pen. My two demonstrations. First demo. Lori, Matt, Rich, and everyone else listening. I'm putting you on notice right now. I'm going to take this pen. I'm going to drop it on the desk. I'm putting you on notice. I'm going to do that. All right. That's my demonstration. Demonstration 2. Matt, Lori, Rich, anyone else on this call. I'm putting you on notice. I'm going to drop this pen. Before I do, though, I'm going to start recording this. And Rich, what I want you to do is look into the camera, tell me your name, your address, and I want you to say after me that you're going to hold me harmless from and against any and all claims, causes of action, expenses, fees, and so forth that might arise, foreseeable or not, as a result of me dropping a pen on the desk. Now, would you do that? No. Why would you ever do that? And by the way, what right do you have to stop me from dropping my pen? You don't, right? I could stop. I can drop my pen anytime I want. It might annoy you, but you don't have a right to tell me no. But what have I done in the second example that I didn't do in the first? The answer is I gave you control. I had control because I could drop this pen whenever I want, but somehow I have now assigned or transferred that control to you, So now, can I drop the pen? What if I say, I want you to waive rights? I'm going to drop this pen, but I want you to waive rights against me. And you say, no, I'm not. Can I drop the pen? Now, one could argue, well, of course you could drop the pen. Rich doesn't have a right to stop you. But someone else would say, well, if Rich doesn't have the right to stop you, why are you asking him to sign something? Why are you asking him to say something into the camera? Right? You see the point? We have created, by having customers sign a declination or a decline letter, by having them sign it, we've created a solution for a problem that didn't exist. If your MSA is written correctly, then it will say that you are only going to get, customer, you're only going to get the services that are in a quote. If it's not in the quote, you don't get it. Then the quote should say, you are only going to get the services that are in this quote. If it's not here, you don't get it. And if I decline a service, then it won't be in the quote. Now, to ask me to now sign a letter saying that you're not going to provide me a service that I've declined, so you're not responsible to provide it anyway, I have to give you authority to do that? It makes no sense. I'm signing off to give you permission to not give me something that I told you not to give me. Makes no sense. And it injects ambiguity and vagueness into the relationship. And if anything, if they don't send that letter back and something bad happens, it'll go down. What's going to go down is, why didn't I have MFA? Well, Brad, you declined that service and we sent you a letter about that. Yes, you did, Rich. You sent me a letter. I never sent that back. I didn't sign it because I didn't decline it. Now what? Now we're arguing. No. So a declination letter, okay, in my view, should not have a signature requirement. Instead, it should say, again, assuming your MSA is written correctly, assuming your quotes are written correctly, it should simply say, listen, Rich, you declined, this service was offered to you, whatever it was. This is what it does. This is something bad that could happen as a result. We are not going to provide this service to you unless we agree to do so in the future in writing in another quote. Oh, and by the way, if you need it in the future, just to let you know, prices might vary. They might go up in the future. Thank you. That's it. I don't need your approval. The only time that I would deviate from that is if you are operating in a co-managed environment and your customer requires you to surrender exclusive access. So if your customer comes to you and says, we want you to provide, exclusive access rather to the admin panel or to the root access to Lori and to Matt and to Rich. Well, I'm going to get a release. At that point, I'm going to get a waiver that you have to sign, because in that case, the customer hasn't declined a service. Instead, they are requiring you to do something affirmatively that could cause problems in the future. I've given everyone keys to my house. If something happens, I might not be able to figure out who did it. So if you want keys to my house, everybody signs a waiver. So that's not exactly a declined service. That's that's a co-managed situation. But for declined services, what I preach is make sure your MSA is written correctly, make sure your quotes are written correctly, and then you tell a customer what you offered, what they're not getting, a parade of horrible things that could happen, and you say thank you and move on.
Wow, that is definitely an education for our viewing and listening audience. Wow, that's a lot to go through, and I'm glad that you went to law school and not me, because that sounds like you had a lot of work to do in school. Lori, I want to turn it over to you just to get your thoughts, follow-up comments on declaration letters. I don't know if you do those or not, or anything else that he mentioned.
Well, I think it is a bit of a struggle. I hear both sides from other MSPs and what they've, if I'm going to have them sign this, decline letter. And, but I've heard then other lawyers say, it's a bad interaction really between you and your client to have that. It's not a feel good situation. But the piece that I know from an MSP point of view, or I'm struggling with a little bit, is the MFA, because there's situations where the person or the people are volunteers that sit at a front desk, when they sign in, they don't have, some of them are older, believe it or not, they don't even have phones. And how do you, I know so coming up with, I always try to find solutions that I don't have to have custom everything for every client. I want a solution that works for everybody if I can. So kind of stumbling a little bit with the whole MFA piece. So some good advice today, I think.
Yeah, excellent stuff. And Brad, I'm sure it's not the last time we will have you on to go through some of these meatier topics, because everybody wants to protect themselves, but I think ultimately, and Lori, I'll give you a chance to comment on this too, as well as Brad, as long as you're working with customers who have their hearts in the right spot and you want to have a productive relationship, I think having a well-defined MSA is not going to be something that anyone is going to balk to, but you should have those terms defined.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a doom and gloom person, so I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, you have to do it or you're going to be sued. And no, but what I am saying, okay, the message, I guess, is that we're all friends until we're not. And when we're not friends, we're really not friends. So says my lawyer. And that's the problem. We're all friends until we're not. And then when we're not, it's not a, well, I thought that we were doing this and we had an understanding. No, we didn't have an understanding. And now I'm not paying you and you're a jerk and I'm a jerk and everyone's, and that's what I'm saying. That's the issue. But I totally understand that it's not where law and business meet. It's not a perfect fit. It's not always easy to achieve this, but this is what you should be striving for. Not you, Lori. I'm saying generally everybody they should be striving towards this.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And if somebody else wanted to strive for it and wanted to connect with you and say like, wow, my attorney's not servicing me, I don't have an attorney, where can they go? How can they find you and find your services?
Sure. So they could email me, brad@bradleygross.com. Go to the website, bradleygross.com. Listen to the podcast, Technology Bradcast, not podcast, technologybradcast.com. I'm very clever in that way. We have some 17,000 downloads so far, so it's pretty popular in the community. And yeah, sign up for the newsletters on LinkedIn and you'll get in touch with me. Look forward to hearing from everyone.
Awesome. Yeah. And Rich, let's make sure we put a link to that podcast in the show notes for folks who want to check that particular podcast out. Sounds very, very interesting. Well, thank you so much, Brad, for coming on. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Lori will be with us on the other side. We're going to break down the show, have a little bit of fun and other things. You never know. That's why you got to stay tuned and listen to the end, because you never know what's going to happen. See everybody in a few. And we are back with part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly here. Lori Hardtke joining us here for the final part of the segment, coming back from a really interesting interview with Brad Gross. It was a really, really good interview. I got a lot out of it. Rich, Lori, anything you want to say about it? Lori, let's start with you.
Oh, no, yeah, well, that was fabulous. I learned a few things and it was just make sure you listen to it. It was really good, very beneficial for all MSPs of all sizes.
Absolutely. And I mean, all timely material, we're talking about cyber insurance, we're talking all this kind of stuff. It's like, it's all very timely and with SLAs and getting your ducks in a row, getting commitments in place and defining all that just seems important. Rich, anything you want to point out?
Just quickly, credit where it's due. We spoke about MSAs and SLAs, and those are very familiar to folks in our audience here. But we also spoke about this third document, the service guide document. That's not some industry standard. Brad actually invented that. We were speaking with him off the air after the interview. That's an idea he came up with, and it's a very interesting one that I think people should think about.
Yeah, and it's one more user manual that people won't read, but that at least you have it there, right?
Well, and I think it simplifies things for us MSPs to have a document like that and have it centralized and available for our clients.
Yeah, but be transparent, right? You got nothing to hide, and it's good to know what they should expect and what you should expect from your customers. All great stuff. So really good interview. Go back and listen to that if you skipped ahead, because it really is going to be worth your time. We've got a few minutes. Laura, this is your first time on. I really wanted to get to a game. I know Rich has to kind of sneak out of his hotel room in a few minutes, so we're going to try to get through this somewhat quickly. We're going to play a game called 5 Questions. It's your first time on. It's kind of our classic game. The way this works is we're going to ask you 5 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back and forth. The shtick of this game is, as Rich and I cannot write them in advance, we have to think of them on the fly. It can be about anything and anything. But I guarantee you it will not be something IT related, most likely, or it will be something ridiculous. So we get to learn more about you, but nothing embarrassing, no gotchas, just something to have fun with. Cool?
Very cool.
All right, Rich, question number 1 to you.
Okay, I'm going to start with a Hawaii question. Lori, shave ice, cool reason to live in Hawaii or overrated?
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool indeed. All right.
I'm living most people's, I live where most people highly desire to vacation. So I feel very, very fortunate.
Nice. And what is that, Rich? Shaved ice? Is that like a thing?
Well, I mean, Lori can describe it better than I can, but it's like shaved ice. So it's kind of like a slushy. Basically.
Okay. I wasn't 100% sure what we were talking about. Yeah. Oh, Lori, what's question number 2? What is your favorite flavor?
Well, actually, I've never had one of those. I'm not a big sweet person, or so.
Okay, I retract my question then, and I want to restate question number 2. What is your favorite beverage to have when on the beach? Even though I know you don't go all the time, but when you're on the beach, what do you like to drink?
A beer from the local brewery, the Maui Brewing Company, Pauhana.
Ooh, Maui Brewing Company. There's even one on Maui. I tell you, local brews are everywhere, Rich.
Yeah.
even on Maui. All right, Rich, question number 3 to you.
What do you miss most about Arizona?
Besides family, not a whole lot. Sorry. Sorry, Arizona. I actually really loved living there. It just got a little crazy and nutty. So the flip of that question is that's what I love about Maui is it's more of that hometown feeling, like how I grew up, not so crazy busy. There's a thing called Maui Midnight, which is 9 p.m. here. Pretty much everything is zipped up and done. There's no crazy, after hour bars going, it's just pretty quiet. So
Nice. All right. Question number 4 to me. You said you're kind of a homebody. You like to stay around the house. What is your favorite relaxing activity to do while at home?
either cook or be outside in the garden. I just love to be outside. So yeah, those would be my 2 places you'll find me.
All right, Rich, question number 5 to you.
So I've been to Hawaii a few times. I've actually never been to Maui. If I told you I'm a traveler who doesn't love, I don't hate, but I don't love huge tourist throngs, what part of the island should I go to?
Ooh, that's tough because the island has so many different, all the areas are different. I guess I'm impartial to South Maui. I think some of the greatest beaches down here, and a lot of them are not only like the locals know where to go. So if you get the book Maui Revealed, that will tell you all of the little hidden gems and places to go. So if you decide you want to do the road to Hana, it will tell you what little hidden places, that might not be so touristy. So yeah, a lot of cool places to go.
Very cool. Well, we could ask you more questions, and we'll just have to do that the next time you come on to the show with us, so we can learn a little bit more about you. Because I'm sure we could pepper you with Hawaii questions all day long, because we don't really know a whole lot about it. But really cool stuff. We're not going to say goodbye to you quite yet, though, because Rich is going to tell us what we might have missed and what might be coming up next week.
Yeah, well, ordinarily we let you know about what you might have missed in our In Case You Missed It post. That appears on ChannelProNetwork.com every other Friday these days. It's an off week, so tune in a week from now. We'll tell you what you might have missed. But in terms of what's coming up, obviously our event, the Business Management Online Summit, next Tuesday, October 11th. Check it out, folks. Google is doing its Cloud Next conference. So we're going to hear some Google Cloud news, I'm sure, next week. Can't get into the details, but there will also be some hardware news and some security news next week that we'll be reporting on here. And if you want to find out what I'm talking about, just visit ChannelProNetwork.com every day.
Very cool. That is exactly what they should do, and we will tell you where to go when you're on the site to do that. But first, I wanted to give a big thanks not only to Brad Gross for coming on. It was a very interesting discussion we had, but a big thanks to Lori Hardtke for joining us for her first guest host appearance here on Channel Pro Weekly. Lori, I hope you had fun.
I did. Thank you. It was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. So thank you.
Good. Always like to hear that. And a big thanks for coming on and doing it. It's I know it's a long show, so it's a big commitment, but I'm glad that you did. I want to give you a chance to tell the audience if they want to connect with you, if they want to reach out to you, if they want to check out your class, where can they go? How can they do that?
Probably the best is LinkedIn to connect with me. And then also for the class, it's itspu.com.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we put a link to that in the show notes for people to check out as well. So go and do that. Big thanks again for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. ChannelProNetwork.com is where you should go, folks, each and every day. There you'll find the latest articles, white papers, news, downloads, resources, all kinds of stuff to keep you on top of what's going on out there in the crazy, crazy, ever-changing IT industry. or also to help you with various aspects of your business, grow your business, make money, hiring, topics of interest of all kinds. Go there each and every day. Check it out. Of course, subscribe to the ChannelPro Weekly podcast everywhere podcasts are found. We are on pretty much everything. We're also on YouTube. Hit the bell, hit the subscribe, hit the like button. There's a million buttons on. Just don't hit the thumbs down. We don't like that one. Hit thumbs up only, and do that as well. But of course, we will be back in episode 243 next week. See you then.